Richard does not live in the past. Anything but. He doesn't mind talking about it, as you'll see in a moment. But you're always doing things. Tell us what you're doing right now.
Well, right now, actually, I have several balls in the air, Leonard. I have a stage version of The Jungle Book, which is being prepared. We actually tried it out last summer in Chicago and in Boston, and it was beautifully well received. And we're doctoring some of it. We're doing a little more on it, and next year it'll come out again. And there's another version of Bedknobs and Broomsticks, another musical that created for the stage. And I have many, many other fun treats that are coming out. For example, there's a whole series of albums that are going to be released by the Disney company with what they call the lost chords. That's songs that were written for great classic films that nobody's ever heard because they weren't used in the film. And we took about 7 of the films we wrote for Mary Poppins and put them together with great singers and everything. They played the original demos as I played them, and then with great orchestras and everything. It's going to be coming out in about 3 months, and it's a whole series of them. We'll have Sleeping Beauty and Peter Pan and all the various great classics that Disney created with the lost chords in them as well as the originals. So it's going to be wonderful.
For some of those films, they wrote like a dozen, 15, 20 songs.
Oh, absolutely.
To get to whittle it down to the ones that walk like that.
To the one that not only that worked the best. Many times the songs were left out because the sequence was canceled and they didn't decide not to do it. And this happened to us on a number of occasions. And so it's going to be very exciting because I'm very involved in a lot of things, and I'm very lucky. I'm a lucky guy.
Also, in addition to your Disney work, though, in addition to revisiting some of your past triumphs, you've been doing some solo piano albums.
Oh,
so
yeah,
tell us about that.
Well, you know, actually, but it all came about in a very strange and lovely way. My brother's son, Jeff, and my son, Greg, got together. My son, Greg, got together and produced a film called The Boys, the story of the Sherman brothers. That's a wonderful film. And in the course of doing that, it's a documentary. It was very well done, I thought. In the course of doing that film, they needed some music to bridge some of the silent areas where they just had some footage and everything. And I've always written little pieces and everything just for myself. And I play them at home. And my son said he knew the fact that I did this. He says, could you just record a few of these? I want to use them in the background. So he named which ones he liked, and I did them. And a record producer fell in love with the sound of those background things. He asked me, what is that? I said, it's some pieces I wrote over the years. So out came my Forgotten Dreams, my first album, and that went so well that I did a second one called Keys of Love, and I'm working on a third.
If you'll pardon what might seem either an obvious or redundant question,
yes,
would you say that keeping busy is the secret to your youthful outlook and attitude?
Oh, I don't know. Do I have a youthful?
I think you do. Yes, I think you do.
You used to call it immaturity. I tell you truly, I feel I'm just as excited today about the world and about everything about me and everything around me, and as I was when I was 25. And I just, you know, I never did sort of take myself too seriously. Today is a wonderful day. Tomorrow's more exciting because I don't know what's going to happen. Just like I don't know with you what's going to happen. I said, Leonard, don't tell me what you're going to ask me, just do it. And that makes it very exciting for me. So I guess my enthusiasm is the fact that I feel very lucky that I'm alive and I got my health and all that. I got a wonderful wife, Elizabeth, wherever she is in the world. I'm a very, very fortunate fellow, and I don't feel my age at all. I'm 86 years old now.
Richard is the Energizer Bunny. He truly is, and that's why it's invigorating to be around you, be in your company.
Thank you.
Now, so now let's turn back the pages of the book.
Okay.
I feel like Ralph Edwards on This Is Your Life. We're not going to surprise you with any long lost cousins coming up with this chat.
Right.
But seems, one might think that it was destined for you and your brother to go into the songwriting business because your dad was a successful songwriter.
Dad was a wonderful pop songwriter, that's right, and Dad, music was in the family. My mom was an actress who played beautiful piano, she was wonderful as a pianist. My father was a very successful songwriter in the 20s and the 30s. I'll play one song of my dad's,
Yeah.
and you'll all know it because every football season you hear this song. You gotta be a football leader to get along with a beautiful girl. You gotta be a touchdown getter if you wanna get a baby to know.
The first song I like with the Green Valley recording called 99 out of 100 Wanna Be Kissed. Why don't you?
99. Wait. I can't hear the piano too well. Yeah. 99 out of 100 wanna be kissed. Why don't you?
Sorry, so he was what they used to call a Tin Pan Alley song.
Tin Pan Alley songwriter, right?
And a successful one.
And he gave us a system. He said, if you want to really write a song that catches, write a song that's simple, singable, sincere, and original. So it's the three S's and original. And that was the basic formula that we stayed with. No matter what we wrote, we tried to keep it singable so that the audience would feel it and go with it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And the originality and the singability and the sincerity of it all had to be part and parcel of it. So it was in our bones to write that way.
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't necessarily something you were both headed for. You and Bob had different paths.
Yes.
And you went to college. He went to war.
Yes, he did.
World War II.
Young boy is a young man.
And you went to Bard College back east.
Both of us did, yes.
Yes. And but your father actually is the one who encouraged you to do what you wound up doing. Tell us how that came about.
Very well. I will. Very happy to do that. And actually, Bob and I Bob was going to be the great American novelist, playwright. He was going to write plays, and that's what he aimed to do. And I was going to write the Great American Symphony or the Great American Musical all by myself. I was going to do that. That's what I truly wanted to do. And so we both were living in a little tiny apartment, digging the Great American hole in the ground. And this was happening to either of us after college.
Back here in LA?
Back here in LA, that's right. We lived in a little apartment over a cleaning store on Pico Boulevard in West Los Angeles. And one day our dad came up to our little apartment and he said, "You two college graduates, I bet you haven't got enough brains in both of your heads to write a song that some kid would give up his lunch money to buy." And he left. The gauntlet had been thrown. The challenge was made. And we said, "What is he talking about?" He says, "He thinks we could write a song together." I don't know. And Bob had, my kid brother, what does he know? And I said, "What does Bob know? He doesn't know anything." And so between the two of us, we sort of looked at each other and said, "Well, let's see if we can do it." And so we started thinking of ideas for what a song would be, what would happen. And a long story short, we did come up with a little pop song. At the time, it was a pop song because country western music, that was very popular back in the early 50s. And so we wrote a little song called "Gold Can Buy Anything But Love." And it was a hook. It was the idea, gold can buy anything is rather audacious to say. But love, you can't buy love. So that was the hook on our little song. And we had a lot of interesting things happen after that, you know.
So that got your foot in the door?
That was what Dad said, "You got a pop tune here, that's good." And so the great country western singer Gene Autry recorded it. And it was, you know, it was a great way to get started. There's only one problem. About that time, it tells you what year it was in history, General MacArthur had been recalled by Harry Truman from going over the 30th parallel into Korea. You might remember that little incident. And he had a farewell speech that he made in front of Congress. And he said, "I want to close my remarks with an old ballad that we used to sing at West Point. Old soldiers never die, they just fade away. immediately, our song was taken off the presses. Gene Autry recorded "Old Soldiers Never Die," and nobody ever heard of our song. End of our song. Thank you, General. You did a good job in the World War II. Seriously speaking, it really killed us. It was very upsetting to us, but it gave us a taste of what it's like to have a real good popular singer sing your song and get it started. We heard it on the air.
It also gave you a sense of how fickle show business can be. You think you're all set for success, and then poof.
It's very, very well said, exactly. It was a lesson. In one fell swoop, we had the highs of a successful person recording your song and the lows of having it completely disappear and fall apart. So that was our first popular song together.
I'm going to take a little detour before we go to the next step here.
Okay.
And Richard did ask me to not tell him what I was going to ask him about. But since we're here at the TCM Classic Film Festival, we're here in the heart of Hollywood. You grew up in this town.
Yes, I did.
And, you know, for those of us who didn't, I grew up back east, and people are here from all over the country. This is a company town. So when you went to school, you were going to school with the sons and daughters of some pretty interesting and famous people.
Wonderful people. I know when I graduated from high school, my accompanist was Andre Previn. And yeah, we called him Andy. But then he got a little high hat because he was working at MGM at the age of 16. He was doing musical direction for films over there. It's amazing, amazing man. But there were a lot of wonderful, wonderful people.
I'm going to try to cue you to talk about Lois. And
Lois's father.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was even earlier than high school and grammar school. I went to a little school in Beverly Hills called El Rodeo Grammar School. And there was a very nice little blonde girl who sat one desk above, in front of me, one desk over, so I could actually see her paper. And I was terrible at spelling. I would spell things the way they sounded in my ear, but not the way they were supposed to be. Like tongue, T-U-N-G, I'd spell it. T-O-N-G-U-E, it threw me. But I could always see Lois, and she'd always give me the paper so I could see what she was writing. And she was a good buddy of mine. And one day she said she's having a birthday party. We were all of 12 years old. So I said, oh, I'd love to come. And so I went to this birthday party in the valley, in this lowly home. And a very nice man was sort of running things. It was her dad. And he was very nice. And he said, now it's time we start on some movies. So we went to a little, like a barn out the back. It was like a little theater for all us kids. And he was running Laurel and Hardy pictures. And I'm watching this Laurel and Hardy. And the guy's projection is laughing louder than anybody else. And he looked a little grayer and older, but it was the same guy. It was Stan Laurel. And we became lifelong friends. Lois was a sweetheart and a nice girl.
And you knew June Hager also.
June Hager, right? She became Mr. Frederick Murray. I'm Mrs. Frederick Murray. And June Hager was schooled me. And, I'm trying to think, Jerry Paris, the director. There's so many people. Lynn Stonemaster, the famous casting director.
Oh, he'll be here tomorrow morning. I'm going to interview him about Fiddler on the Roof tomorrow.
Well, you tell him Dick Sherman said.
I will.
He knew me as Dick. Richard Ham, you know that. But, no, actually, Lynn and I go back so far, yeah.
Wow.
So many people that were all connected somewhat with the industry, and it was...
And yet, that, of course, I mean, it sounds very glamorous, and it was just sort of every day for you.
It was not glamorous at all.
Yeah.
It just was, that's the way it was, you know. You never thought about it twice. I didn't.
So here you are, now you're college grads, your father has given you this challenge, you meet the challenge, but it doesn't turn out as you hoped. So what was your next step?
Well, we just, for my step was the fact that a year later, we kept trying to write songs. We had a few songs recorded, and then I had to save America for democracy, so I had to go into the service. And I was in the service for 2.5 years. I was in the Army. Never fired a shot in anger. I was just home lucky in this part of the world. But when I got out of the Army in the mid-50s, the world had changed. My brother was writing with another writer, and I was sort of on my own, and there was a thing called rock and roll, just taking over. And I wanted to write beautiful ballads, and I wanted to pretty catch fun songs, and nobody wanted anything like that. So it was really kind of difficult until I finally caught on to it, and I said, okay, and Bob and I started writing together again, and we had our first big hit together. And that was in the late 50s, like 58. A little girl named Annette Funicello recorded.
No.
I need a piano on this thing. I'm going to push it up a little bit. Let me see. Where is it? Low, mid, high?
Volume on the left.
Volume on the left.
Volume on. This is my left. I don't Okay, good.
Look up so they're showing.
Oh, there, Johnny. Well, that's the, okay. Well, the first one, leave that one on because I'll play that one. The first song we ever did was Annette Funicello, and I'll give a couple of bars of that. And now this was our big #1 song, twice it was #1 in the country. But the first song we did was a song called Tall Paul, and it went like this: Chalk on the sidewalk, right on the wall, everybody knows it. I love Paul, Tall Paul, Tall Paul.
Lead you back to that.
Lead me back, okay.
But talk about this, because this was really a smash.
Well, that was our biggest rock and roll song, and of course that was just before we started at Disney, and it was just one of those things. We wrote a little 16, something that would appeal to a 16-year-old. So we were sitting in the room and said, "Look, what appeals to a 16-year-old?" Well, kids are very pragmatic. They say, "You're my girl," and that's the way they talk. So say, let's see. We'll have to say something about 16. Why don't we say you're 16? And it's and you're beautiful, and you're mine. There you go. You can come on like a dream, peaches and cream, lips like strawberry wine. You're 16, you're beautiful, and you're mine, mine, all mine. You're all ladies and girls, well, you are a girl, eyes that sparkle and shine. You're 16. You're beautiful and you're mine. Well, you're my baby and you're my pet. We fell in love in the night that we met. The touch of your hand, the heart went pop, and when we kissed, we could not stop. We came out of my dreams into my arms. Now you're my angel divine. You're 16. You're beautiful and you're mine, all mine. You're 16.
But now you have a smash, and of course, as it shows in this little collage there, you had a very unusual situation because a couple of decades later, it was a hit all over again. It went back to #1 on the Billboard chart and Ringo Starr.
Ringo Starr did it, and then it was in American Graffiti. It was featured in that. You know, it has the history of its own. It's kind of nice to have a rocker like that. People say, "Oh, you write a little cute little kiddie songs." I said, "No, I've written rock and roll too."
So now, when you wrote Tall Paul, that wasn't on commission, was it? That was a freelance.
A freelance song. We did all those songs were freelance songs. Until Walt Disney, we'd written enough songs for Annette. We'd had a string of successes with her that Walt Disney was aware of us. He didn't know us personally, but he was going to put her into a film. And he said, "Get those two brothers, those young fellas that are writing for Annette, to come and I want to have them do a song for her for this film." And so some executive at the studio called us and gave us a situation and said, "Would you like to take a flyer trying to write a song for Annette?" We said, "Sure, we'd love to do that." So we wrote this little song and brought it into the studio, and we played it for the executive. And he said, "Well, yeah, I like it a lot. I think it'll be perfect, except that Walt's got to hear it." So we said, "Walt who?" He said, "Well, Walt Disney." He said, so I said, "You Walt Disney? You know, the man on the..." And we were terrified. I said, "Well, maybe we should get a recording artist to sing it, you know, a demonstration record and everything." He said, "No, he likes to hear it in person. You'll sing it for him." Oh, good. Now, it was terrifying. It truly was. And he was marvelous. He was terrific. I remember we walked into his office, and Jimmy Johnson is the fellow that we were working with, walking in with, and he said, well, these are the Sherman brothers. He says, oh, are you really brothers? Because, you know, in vaudeville, they used to have vaudeville acts that called the brothers, and they weren't brothers. He says, oh, we were brothers, sir. I mean, we were told to call him Walt, and he didn't like to be called Mr. Disney. So he's really Mr. Disney, cool. Yeah, no, we had the same parents. We were petrified. And he was so sweet and nice. He said, you know, when I was a youngster, I was in a vaudeville act with a fellow named Walt Pfeiffer. And so we decided we were going to call ourselves whatever we could find in a name. And so people had left a stack of the Johnson Brothers songs and dances by the Johnson Brothers. So we're going to be the Johnson Brothers. He said, so that's the reason why. And then later on we called ourselves the Waltz, but that didn't work too well. But that, you know, he was so sweet. He said, so play what you got. So he played him the song and listened to it. This is the way he was. He never really said to anybody that was a creative person, oh, that's perfect, I think it's wonderful, I love it. He never would say anything like that. He would listen to it and say, yeah, that'll work. And that's what he said to us, that'll work. He was like, what I put down, you know. And then he said to Jimmy Johnson, you know, these fellas are pretty eager. Give me that script on the Haley Mills picture. I like to have them try to attack that. So they had a picture called We Belong Together. So I don't like the title, We Belong Together. Maybe we can come up with a better title. So that became The Parent Trap. We started liking everything we were doing. We kept doing assignments for various projects. And one day
and so just to explain this, I mean, you became house songwriters.
We did become house songwriters subsequent to one great experience that took place. And oh, I love these pictures with Annette. You know, that's beautiful.
I mean, people, I'm sure a lot of people remember, I mean, but these were big hit albums.
Oh yeah, they all were very successful.
And you wrote the entire albums worth of songs.
No, concept. We do our 4 or 5 songs,
oh,
and then they bring in standards and things. Other people wrote songs, you know. Okay. we wrote a lot of them. But the basic thing was that we were getting hot with Walt, and he liked our work. So one day he said, do you know what a nanny is to us? And we said, oh yeah, we can write a song about a goat, a nanny goat. No, nursery for kids, you know. So he said, oh yeah, sure. He's an English nurse. He wrote this book, and he didn't say, I need a title song, I don't need a song for this girl to sing, I don't need a situation song. He just said, read this book and tell me what to think. And the rest of it is kind of history.
I'm going to interrupt again since we had this wonderful collage up here. So he told you he had this film with Haley Mills.
Right.
And do you remember how the idea came to you? Now, first off, we should say that Annette Funicello, sweet, wonderful girl, and the
yes.
woman that she was the first to say that she didn't have much of a voice.
Right.
And yet, she turned out this string of hit songs, hit singles, hit albums.
A little Disney magic, I'll tell you.
Yeah. we can talk about it. It's not disrespectful to say this because she was the first to admit it and was very, very candid about it, very disarming about it all over the years.
That's absolutely beautifully said because it's true. She was very unstuck on herself. She said, I can't sing. I want to be a dancer. I'm not a singer. And so the thing is that Bob and I realized we've got to help this girl every way we can. And there was a trick we did when we had this very bad singer once who really was terrible, yet we had to make a record with him. And so we said, let's put his voice into a deep echo chamber and have him sing the same thing twice. And just sing on top of himself. It'll sound like he has a big, powerful voice. And it worked. The song was a flop, but the fact remains we had a
But you doubled Annette's voice too.
And that's what we did. We said, let's put her one track in deep echo, and then have her double the same sound, sing exactly the same way, all the same phrasing. And she was wonderful at lip sync. She could do exactly the same thing. Once we said, that's the take, Annette, now we'll go back and do it again. And she had the phones in her ear, perfect. And all of a sudden, bang, out came her voice. She dominated the record, and everybody fell in love with her because her personality was there.
Sure. Sure.
And now she's doubled and she's singing great.
So it was no big challenge to you when you were given another young girl to work with, Haley Mills, who also didn't really sing.
No, Haley didn't sing. With her, it was very funny. The same thing happened. She says, I can't sing, I'm an actress. So I said, act like you're a singer.
Play a little bit.
Oh yeah, this is Haley. This is Haley. Let's get together, baby. Why don't you and I come by? Let's get together. What do you say? We could have a swinging time. Give me a cool and easy tea. Why don't you make the scene together? But everybody at the studio, all the established composers and writers and everything, said, oh, these are the rock and roll guys that write rock and roll songs. And we didn't want to write rock. That's what we had to do to get by and to make a living and to be in the marketplace. But Walt saw more into us because he gave us this book. And the book was wonderful. It was filled with charming, wonderful stories. Except there was one problem. No plot whatsoever. No reason for Mary Poppins to come into the lives of the Bank family and to leave at the end of the stories. And Bob and I realized, I guess maybe because we did study a little bit about literature, that you've got to have a good story to hold people in their seats, to sit for 2 hours and watch a motion picture. So we said, this could never happen. But if we took these 6 chapters, we thought were very good, and weave them together with a need for Mary Poppins to come and a need for her to leave. And so the thing we did was we said, let's say that there's a dysfunctional kind of a family. The mother has her cause, she's going out, later on we decided to make her a suffragette about that period. And the father is so busy in the bank, he hasn't got time for the children. So he's just a stuffy who goes to the bank, makes money and comes home. He loves his kids, but he doesn't pay any attention to them. So this is something we made up out of our heads, so that Mary Poppins is needed to come in and teach them that you have to feed the birds. It doesn't take much, it's just tuppence a bag. And it doesn't take much. A spoonful of sugar will help the medicine of life go down. These are things we came up with as we were working on the project. Basically, Walt fell in love with our storyline. Our idea, not the whole storyline, but the concept of a need for Mary Poppins to come. He knew that was one of the ingredients he'd have to have. And there's a whole story there about, we didn't know this, but Walt only had an option on that book. He did not have the rights to do a movie. But on the strength of what we came up with, he put us on his staff as his staff songwriter. So for a year and a half, we were working on everything at the studio, television shows, motion picture one after another. There's some magic in what we did. And all this while we were developing the storyline of Mary Poppins and the songs that were going to tell the story.
And so it was around this time when you were under contract, it was whatever was needed.
Yeah,
If there was a TV episode that needed a song, have the Shermans write it.
Right.
If there were anything that came up, like for instance a New York World's Fair,
That's right.
That would be an occasion for you to write some stuff.
Absolutely. We were the troubleshooters in that particular case because they had this ride, there was this experience, and it was called Salute to the Children of the World, sponsored by UNICEF. A great idea, beautiful work on the part of the artists and the part of the Imagineers who created these audio and electronic figures, these wonderful children who were singing national anthems of every country. And on paper, it was a great idea, but in actuality, it was a disaster. It was cacophony. Because when you walked through this ride, you heard nothing after a little bit. You couldn't hear, you couldn't distinguish anything. So just out of pure good luck, I'd say, we were there at the right place at the right time. And Walt said, I want you fellas to write me a song that can be translated into any language, so it has to be like a folk song. But it has to tell the idea that it's a very little world we live in, and we have to understand each other, respect each other, because we all share the same problems. And he says, and I need it yesterday. It's opening at the World's Fair in 8 months. So, wow, we were really under the gun. And we wrote a little ditty that people either want to kiss us or kill us. And I don't have to tell you what the title is.
And it just celebrated its official anniversary this week.
That's right, 50 years of just
And oddly, that isn't the only song. Not oddly, but it isn't the only thing. You did a lot of work for the World.
Oh, yeah, we did a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow.
So many of these exhibits wound up at Disney.
Oh, Walt was no fool. He knew he had a good thing and he brought them back, yes. It was a marvelous experience. I will say, I never dreamed that the Small World, for example, would be sung in every language, all around the world. It never stopped being played somewhere around the world, all the time. And they did this wonderful a series of shooting choirs and people in the street singing the song all around the world and shot it and put it on the air.
It was like Good Morning America the other day.
Good Morning America. It was wonderful, very thrilling. Absolutely.
So having given sort of a spine to the vignettes that were Mary Poppins,
Yes.
You then did more than just write those songs. You worked very closely with the screenwriter.
Well, we did. Originally, it was a wonderful fellow by the name of Don DeGrati, who was not only a wonderful artist, he was a terrific sketch artist. He had been a situation artist who worked on animations. But Walt felt that he would be very good for us to work with, get the visual ideas out of Don. And he was great with the story as well. And so the three of us developed it to a point where we had, if you've seen a picture called Mr. Banks, Saving Mr. Banks. Well, had basically the basic nuts and bolts of what the movie would be. But it was a genius writer by the name of Bill Walsh who came in and really wrote that brilliant script. He fleshed it out and added the bank sequence around the bank. He did wonderful things. So basically it was a team effort of Walt Disney who ran the whole thing. Don DeGrati, Bill Walsh, and Bob and myself. The five of us made the Mary Poppins story happen. That's how it happened.
And then, of course, you know, the songs are so beautifully integrated because that was part of the design from day one.
Oh yes, we felt you got to tell the story through songs. It had to be told that way. You didn't want to lay it on with a child. You had to be subtle. So these little songs were subtle hints of what you should feel, what you should think, and let the audience discover it. The kids, on one level, would never understand it, but the parents would. And that's the idea. We had two levels going, of course.
Right. I'm trying to not ask all the obvious questions that anybody would ask you about spoonful of sugar and all these other.
You want to make it tough for me, I know.
I want just to deviate a little bit, go around the bend a little bit. You once told me a very funny story about Walt wooing Glynis Johns to play the Mrs. Banks.
Oh, true.
And he had and she was not unwilling, but she had to be wooed a little bit.
This is a wonderful story. I remember that. Now, this is a very fun story. We had already cast Julie Andrews to play Mary Poppins. She had a glorious voice. It would be her debut as an actress and singer on film. She was, of course, a huge star on Broadway, but that didn't make her a world-famous star. And Walt took the great challenge, the chance of putting her into the title role. But we had a very important role, and that was the mother. And Glynis Johns was a great little actress, a great actress, and she was perfect for the little part. So the casting director said, when he called her to come to have lunch with us at the studio, Walt wants to talk to you about being in Mary Poppins. And she assumed she'd be playing Mary Poppins. That's not good. The digestive system. So we were sitting, being very kind of happy and sort of joking and talking and having a good time with Glynis. And she was remembering having done other films for Walt in the past, and she was looking forward to being in it again. And she said, so I've always wanted to play Mary Poppins. And everybody was a little shook. And Walt said, Glynis, we've already set Mary Poppins is going to be Julie Andrews from Broadway. She's going to play the part. And the blood went out of her face. She just said, oh, like that. No, we're dead, we're dead. But Walt doesn't give up that easy. Walt didn't give up that easy. He said, but Glennis, the boys have just written a wonderful song for you to sing. It'll be opening, it's a musical, and you'll be singing this song. You'll first come in, one of the first songs, sung in the picture, it's going to be your song. I said, oh, well, I'd like to hear that. So they just have to dot the I's and cross the T's, right? Right, boys, right, boys? Oh, yes, right. So we had a nice cordial, geez, I'd like to hear the song. He said, don't worry, Glennis, the boys will have it Monday. You'll be... Guess what we were doing over the weekend? That Monday, she came, she heard the song, she fell in love with it. This is the subject. And that was the song that she sang in the picture. And then she sang Fly a Kite at the end of the picture, and she was happy. And she did a wonderful job. But it was Walt's quit thinking. We would have lost her completely if not for that.
One day you told us that you had actually written a song for the character who was just a minor character, but he's kind of fun. It's Admiral Boone, who lives down the street and keeps track of the weather conditions and the changing of the weather vane.
Oh, yeah, he's
played by the great old character actor Reginald Owen.
Absolutely.
Can you play us just the first few bars of Admiral Boone?
Oh, sure. This is going to be one of the songs that's going to be in that album.
Oh, great. Lost Chords, great.
Yes. Who met Spain's Armada with daring and with skill, and cut them up just like a mutton pie. And who would let your father display an unflinching will, and thereby did Napoleon in the eye. Horatio Nelson, and who in the Royal Navy established that rigid time, that firm and flexible interval known as T. Punctuality, though the world takes its time from Greenwich, Greenwich takes its time from me. Boom, 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 boom. The name for punctuality, you may safely assume, zoom, 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 is known throughout the Admiralty. It's me, I said, it is I, Admiral.
Such a good sport. He was not prepared to do that. We love hearing it. So thank you.
I'm so glad. You'll hear a very good singer doing it. It's a very good recording, yes.
Is that your dad in these snapshots?
That's my father. He was the inspiration for us when we wrote Let's Go Fly a Kite.
Really?
Dad used to make kites for us and fly them. He said, nothing is more exciting than when you make your own kite and fly it. A piece of you was up in the air. And we never forgot that. When we needed a finale for Mary Poppins, when the father sees the light and he fixes the kite for the kids, he takes the kites, takes them out, and they fly the kite together. And we wanted this exhilarating, wonderful, joyous feeling that the family has. And the father, even though he thought he lost his job, he takes the family out and they fly a kite together. And Mary Poppins knew her job was finished. She had done the job. And so she flies away. It's kind of a wonderful. It was my dad. He was our inspiration for that.
Now, people who've seen, apparently a lot of you did see Saving Mr. Banks.
Yeah.
One of the really most revealing part of the film, I hope you stayed through the credits. When you stayed through the credits, you heard the actual tape recording. Mrs. Travers driving them crazy.
Can you imagine 2 weeks of that? Oh my God, it was 2 weeks through Hades. I tell you, she was a difficult lady. She really was. But she gave us this great character. She gave us these wonderful stories.
So what I'm trying to say is the film is not an exaggeration. The little glimpse of or the little excerpt of the tape recordings gives you a good sense of that. If you want to hear even more of those tapes, which I couldn't bear to listen to, they're on the last CD reissue, I think,
Yes.
the 40th anniversary CD reissue. And I tried to listen in my car, and it was just too upsetting. So I can't imagine living through it.
I best describe it as this. when we were told that we had to sell Mrs. Travers on our story concept and everything, we were unprepared totally for what she was thinking. We thought, oh, well, she's gonna love this, this is great. One song after another she despised, she didn't like, she didn't want it, she didn't. I remember one day we were singing the Admiral Boone song. At the time it was in the concept, and I had really was up on it. I was singing my guts out with it, and when I'm through, she said, I rather fancy Tarara Boom Die. Tarara Boom Die. You don't need that song. So Mrs. Travers, she was not easy.
Wow. Now, you had a blank slate or a clear field, perhaps, is a better term, when working on Winnie the Pooh, because no one had ever really done a film version of the big known characters.
It was a delightful challenge. I know that Walt gave us that subsequent to Mary Poppins, and he had a lot of faith in us, and he said, you know anything about Winnie the Pooh? We said, no, we don't know anything about it at all. So we started reading the stories. And fortunately, on the lot, we didn't quite get with it right away. And on the lot was, Julie's first husband was a sweet, sweet man, a very gifted set designer. Now he's a director as well, named Tony Walton. And Tony was a Brit. He grew up in England, of course. And so he said, Tony, you got to help us. Do you know anything about a good character named Winnie the Pooh? And he lit up like, he was Winnie the Pooh. I love Winnie the Pooh. Oh my God, I grew up with him. He was my best friend. Oh, I love Winnie the Pooh. So he'd come to our office and tell us about Winnie the Pooh. By the time he finished telling us what it meant and all these characters and what they were, Eeyore is always the gloomy Gus, and Rabbit is always the little fuss budget, and all these characters, they all are people that you know. And my God, we fell in love with him. And so when he left, he spent 2 hours talking to us about his childhood, how much Winnie the Pooh meant to him. We were in love with Winnie the Pooh. And for the past 45 years or so, everybody's been singing our little songs from Winnie the Pooh.
And then there's the last film that Walt personally worked on. You continued working at the studio.
Oh, yeah.
But Jungle Book was the last film he had a real connection.
There was two versions. There was two versions of Jungle Book. There was a very serious version, which is the way Rudyard Kipling created Jungle Book. It's a dark, mysterious story. And there was one little novelty song that was written by the original writer, Terry Gilkerson, very talented writer, and he wrote one song that Walt liked. The rest of it, he threw out everything. He threw out the storyline. He threw out practically every concept because it was too dark, it was too heavy. And we were brought in to go to a meeting, and Walt said there were several animators there. There was a very wonderful animation director, Willie Ryder, was there, and Bob and I. And he said, how many of you guys have read Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book? And nobody raised their hand. It's like we hadn't gone to school and read our lessons. And so Walt said, good, I'm glad you didn't read it, because I'm going to tell you the story the way I see it. And with that, he proceeded to tell Jungle Book the way he saw it, the characters, the way he saw them, and everything. And when we were all through, he said, so I want you fellas to get the darkest, scariest scene and have fun with them. Turn on the ear to make them exciting and fun like that. And we were about to leave, and he said, boys, I want to tell you something. There's one song from the original version of this thing I want to keep. I like it. So he said, oh, sure, Walt. That happened to be the biggest song in the whole picture. Bare necessities. I've been complimented many times for having written that song, but it's Terry Gilkerson. But Bob and I wrote the rest. We had a big song in this one. This was really pretty much as the king of the singers. It was an 8.
Again, I'm going to take the prerogative. Tell us about auditioning this for Louis Prima.
Oh, okay.
Then play.
Okay, yes. Well, actually, we written the song, and it was a scary scene where this king of the apes wants to get the secret of fire from the poor little Mowgli. He knows nothing about fire. He was raised by wolves. What does he know? So it was our opportunity to write a fun song. And so we said, what does an ape do? Well, he grunts a lot. He goes, talks like that, and he swings in a tree. So we said, great. What we'll do is we'll make him the king of the swingers, because he was the king of the apes. King of swingers, we had all his sides over at a jazz number for him. And it'll be a song with lots of grunts in it and everything. So it'll sound like an ape singing it. And with that, Walt liked it. Walt listened to it very carefully when I sang it for him the first time. He said, yeah, that'll work. Who do you Or when he said that'll work, oh, you're right. So then he said, who do you think? So we all talked about it, and we thought Louis Prima was a great bandsman and a great performance man. And he had this great band called Sam Butera and the Witnesses. That was a band. The best acted in all of Las Vegas. So basically, we were flown over to Las Vegas to play the song for Sam Butera and the Witnesses and Louis Prima. And so we had to go through 4 different sets. They played in the Sahara Hotel, and we were like exhausted. It was 5 in the morning or something when they finally made a break, and then we went into a tiny little room with a tiny little upright piano facing a wall. It was terrible. This way I get to see you when I sing, but I was looking this way. And it was a very grim situation because these guys are the wildest acting in all of Las Vegas. But when we were along with them, they were like university professors. They were scary. And I'm singing this nutty song. I'll sing you the song and then I'll tell you what happened afterwards. Okay. Now I'm the king of the swingers, don't believe I do. I used to talk, can't stop, and that's what's bothering me. I might want to be a man and stroll right into town and be just the other man. I'm tired of walking around saying, ooh, I want to be like you. I want to walk like you, talk like you, as you do. You see, it's true, and ain't like me, Scooby-Doo, but it can't hurt me. You like to be blue, can't hurt to be you like to. One more time. I want to be like you. So we finished singing, these university professors were singing like this, not a smile, nothing. And Louis Prima says to me, are you trying to make a monkey out of me? I said, no, you're the ape. These guys are the monkeys. They all fell apart. And he says, we love it, we're going to do it. They wanted to pull it together. Somebody said, Sherman likes to get a response all the time, so he did no response. But it's true, they did a great job. And of course, I had a very touching moment about 10 years ago, shortly before Louis passed away. He was asked, about his career, and one of the things he said in this interview, he says, I think really the truly most rewarding and high point of my career was having been part of the Walt Disney Jungle Book, and having done that, that gave me real immortality. And it made me feel so great because
and you got to work with Phil Harris the second time, of course, when you worked on the Aristocats.
oh, that's right.
He was such a success as Baloo in Jungle Book.
It was great, yeah. And then when we did the stage version of Jungle Book, the fellow that played him was doing a kind of a Phil Harris takeoff because he set that character.
Yeah,
he just set Baloo. It was just great. Yeah, we were very fortunate with all the great talent that, we haven't talked about the great people we worked with over the years with Julian, Dick Van Dyke, fantastic.
Sure, Angela Lansbury.
Angela Lansbury.
Tell everyone about the time you got to work with Bing Crosby
well,
a nice little moment that happened during that.
Oh, that was wonderful. Actually, one of my idols has been Crosby. I don't think anybody ever sang song more beautifully, with more feel and beat. Sinatra swang and we did all that kind of thing, but Bing had it all. I think Bing did it better than anybody. And they all learned from him. But let me say this, for years, I sort of hero worshipped him from afar. Never dreamed I'd ever, and his curve of his great career was kind of simmering down. He wasn't doing much recording or anything. But about the early 70s, we were asked to do some songs for a special that was going to be on television with the Crosby family. And it was going to be Goldilocks. And his daughter, who was the one that shot J.R., remember that? Mary Crosby. She was going to be Goldilocks. They dyed her hair black blonde. And Bing was going to be Bing Crosby and his family. And they go camping. And then while they're camping, he tells the story of Goldilocks. And little Mary Crosby imagines herself as Goldilocks, and she goes into the scene, and then Bing took the part of Papa Bear, and Catherine Crosby took the part of Mama Bear, and Nathaniel was the kid brother, he was the baby bear. So they had all these voices, the Crosbys, the family. It was a lovely, lovely film. And we recorded the songs, and he did a fabulous job on it, of course. And we were all excited about it. And he said, you know, we should do a commercial record on these things, because they were done as soundtrack records, which is a little different. This way you could have more of a beat and everything going with it. So he said, gee, that'd be great, we'd love to do that. So he said, okay. So we arranged to have a recording session. And I asked my dad, who had been writing songs in the 20s and 30s, and Bing had sung a lot of my dad's songs into the 40s. He had big hits with my dad. He had a song called Pretending, very big song, On the Beach of Valley, Organ Play, Oh Promise Me. He had wonderful songs that Dad wrote that he had sung. And so I was, thrilled. I said, Dad, come to the session. So Dad, and this is 25 years after he'd seen Bing, and Bing was there singing one of our songs. And Dad was up in the booth high listening. And Bing looked up, and after the tape he said, Al. Yes, okay. And he said, your boys? I said, Sherman got their names. He said, yeah. He said, I point him right out.
Isn't that a sweet story? To see things come full circle like that must be awfully, awfully special. There's so much more to talk about in your career with your brother Bob, and I think you've been recently on your own, but there's not much more time. In fact, there's virtually no time left. So I'm gonna ask you if you would just do for us. There's some of the things: Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Tom Sawyer, The Slipper and the Rose, Charlotte's Web. People are fans around the world of all of these different.
Play the score of each song, right?
Absolutely. The overture.
Yeah, plus the
Absolutely.
Of course.
But why do you think it was that Walt Disney, to return to Walt, was so important in your life and career? Why do you think he responded so strongly to Feed the Birds?
Walt Disney was a very sentimental individual, very sensitive man. He hit it with a little Midwestern facade of sort of a coolness, but basically he cried at stop signs. He was a remarkably sensitive individual. Didn't show it, but that's what he was. And Feed the Birds was his life story. He doesn't take much to give love. He pours his soul into making people happy. That's what he loved to do. He loved to entertain people, make them happy. He was not after money or fame. That was not his goal. His goal was to make people happy. And he did it very beautifully. And he did it. And Feed the Birds, when he heard that song, when we first played for him, one of the first songs we wrote, it was an inspiration. Came out of the books. It was a story about a lady who sells breadcrumbs at St. Paul's. He said that can be the metaphor of the whole story. But the family have to learn how to feed the birds, have to take care of their children, and show them love. And we sang that song for him once, and then we went on with our meeting and everything. Toward the end of this very propitious meeting, he said, play me that bird lady thing again. And I sang it to him again. And this is the truth. He said, that's the whole story in a nutshell, isn't it? He said, that's right, Walt, that's right. He said, you guys think story. He said, yes, we do, Walt, yes, we do. How'd you like to work here? And he gave us our contract that day. It made our lives. It just changed our entire life from writing pop tunes and Tall Paul and that type of thing to writing Feed the Birds. It's a decision.
Will you then close this out by singing it for us?
I'd be very happy to do that. I want to say one thing before I play. Leonard has a little pin on his lapel here. It's Mary Poppins. It's a little special pin that was given to me. I want him to have it. And the reason why I do is because we have a very warm friendship. He and his family, we love them. They love us. We have a very strong feeling for each other. And it all became part of our lives because when I first met Leonard, he'd come to my house to film something for Entertainment Tonight.
That's right.
And this is about 30 years ago or so. A long time ago. And We've hated each other ever since. Early each day to the steps of St. Paul's, the little old girl comes. In her own special way, to the people she calls. Come, buy my bags full of clothes. Come, free the little girls, show them you care, and you'll be glad if you do. They young ones are hungry, their nests are so bare. All it takes is tuppence from you. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag. Tuppence, tuppence, tuppence a bag. Feed the birds, that's what she cries. While overhead her birds fill the skies. All around the cathedral, the saints and apostles look down as she settles her wares. Although you can't see it, you know that our smile each time someone shows that he cares. Though the words are simple and few, listen, listen, she's calling